HMO, or house in multiple occupation, is defined as a property where unrelated tenants share facilities such as toilet, bathroom, shower or kitchen. There are a number of properties which may count as HMOs for the purposes of landlord and tenancy regulations, and, if you intend to set one up or take one over, it's important to understand exactly what you are taking on. Despite the higher than usual number of tenants which may live within the HMO, there is no reason for it to be any more challenging than a regular rental property. However, due to the number of potential tenants, there is the risk that any challenges that arise will do so on a much larger scale. What is a HMO? A HMO can also be known as a house share. The types of property which tend to be classified as HMOs follows, but you should bear in mind that the list is not exhaustive. At least 3 unrelated tenants, who are not members of the same household, renting rooms in a rental property. A number of tenants who hold separate tenancy agreements. A bedsit or hostel type property. Student accommodation. A building which was converted into a number of self-contained flats but does not yet comply with the 1991 building regulations. If you are in any doubt as to the classification of a rental property, check with the local authority or council. Setting up a HMO. You may need a license to set up and run a HMO, depending on a number of factors. These include the type of the property, how the tenants occupy it, and the regulations set down by the local council. As such, it is always advisable to speak to the relevant council department to make sure you comply with all obligations. There are 2 types of HMO license available to those who require one: mandatory licenses and additional licenses. A mandatory license is required for properties where there are 3 or more stories and/or 5 or more unrelated tenants forming 2 or more households. Additional licensing may be imposed at the council's discretion, particularly in areas where the standard of the HMOs is in question. HMO licensing lasts for 5 years, if not less, and must always be renewed before the expiration date comes around. Don't be tempted to let the license lapse before applying for a renewal. You could face a £20,000 fine for falling behind with this particular paperwork. The cost of the license itself will vary. Again, you should speak to the local authority for more information. Be prepared for a council inspection before the license is granted or renewed. The relevant department will usually want to check for any health and safety or regulation breaches before proceeding. The House in Multiple Occupation section of the gov.uk website is very informative, as is the guidance for landlords and managers. Health and safety in HMOs. The criteria used by councils to assess the health and safety compliance in HMOs is laid out by the Housing Health and Safety Rating System, or HHSRS. Full guidance and information on this system, which assess 29 potential risks, can be found here. Your responsibilities as a HMO landlord. When you take on the role of HMO landlord, the responsibilities which you are obliged to meet are as follows. Please note that this is not an exhaustive list and, as always, professional guidance should be obtained where required. Fire detectors must be installed in all bedrooms and shared areas, with heat detectors supplied in kitchens. Adequate fire extinguishers and means of escape must be provided. Gas supply and fittings must be checked by a registered engineer annually, while electricity checks must be done every 5 years. These certificates must be presented to the council once received. Safety certificates for appliances must also be available on request. The facilities supplied must be suitable for the number of tenants living in the property. Speak to the local council about their specific ratios. Failing to comply with these ratios could lead to a fine of up to £20,000. A fit and proper individual must be tasked with the day-to-day running of the rental, whether this is you as the landlord or a letting agent you have instructed. Contact details for this responsible person must be prominently displayed in the property. All communal areas must be maintained to a reasonable standard. The occupancy of the HMO must be regularly checked by the landlord or the agent. Facilities for disposal of waste must be provided. Clear fire escape routes must be present and communicated to all tenants. These routes must be kept free of obstructions at all times. How to set rental prices. Before you set your rental prices for your new HMO, do some research into the local market to find out what is normally charged. It can be a good idea to speak to some other local landlords and lettings agents to get a feel for the market, if you haven't previously rented out properly in the area. The rent you charge should reflect the going rate for the area, as well as the quality and quantity of facilities and amenities provided. You will also need to factor in costs such as gas, electricity, council tax and similar expenses. Make sure you understand exactly what is required of you as landlord of the HMO, and what you should expect in return, before making any commitment to take over the property. With so many people living in your property, make sure that you and your investment are protected by landlord insurance. For an honest, transparent and hassle-free way for you to rent your HMO, with a great level of service at a fantastic price. skgestateagent.com/go/book free valuation/.